as soon as we formed that partnership, we found we had co-funders and scientists who were really excited to build upon the audience that BBC had reached with the documentary, and hopefully to bring that science and bring that inspiring real world to a demographic that doesn't typically watch, a BBC nature documentary.
Hello everyone and welcome to Geekoscopy 101, the podcast that explores the intersection between science, story and play with me, your host Dr. Geekoscopy. Today we're exploring the ocean depths with video games and CEO of E9 Media and the creative director of the Beyond Blue game, Michael Angst. But before I get to that show, I would like to thank everyone who's subscribed on YouTube. We've recently reached 200 and I'm quite excited about it. And to commemorate that, I'm giving away Beyond Blue on Steam. And if you would like to join in that competition and enter, you can find the link in the description below. But anyway, let's get back to the interview. Welcome to the show, Michael. How are you doing?
Nice to get to talk to you. I'm excited.
I was exceptionally excited to get to speak to a CEO of a company. I don't think I've ever done that before. So it was really cool that I got sent all the way up the chain. I thought I was going to get like maybe a mid-level developer or something. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, part of the benefits of being CEO is I get to choose the interviews I do. And I was very intrigued by the theme of your podcast and some of your prior releases. So I asked our marketing folks if I could chat with you because I'm excited about what you're trying to accomplish and really, really inspired by your mission.
For sure, thanks. So today's podcast is about one particular game, although you are involved with many. But I wanted to chat to you about Beyond Blue specifically, which is a game based on being a marine biologist in the future. So how did that idea come about? Where did the inception of the game start?
I guess as a setting, as a company, we're a consumer game developer and publisher that focus on games that are about the real world. And so I wouldn't say we wouldn't refer to them as documentary games. They are very much fictional worlds and they have narratives and characters and hopefully, deep and moving experiences, but they are definitely inspired by the real world, which we think is an awesome place. And we had done a game prior to Beyond Blue that was about culture. It was about an Alaska Native culture that we had done in collaboration with a tribal organization in Alaska who wanted to share a story that had survived for thousands of years through their oral storytelling tradition through a game. And in so doing that, the game included these insight videos, these videos that we shot while we were making the game with them that allowed a player, as they were unlocking things in the game, to learn more about Alaska Native culture from the people who were our creative collaborators on the game from the community. And the game broke out for us. I think we've reached almost 5 million players with that game called Never Alone. And the BBC was in the process of making a wonderful nature documentary series called Blue Planet 2, which is part of their flagship nature series. And they had seen Never Alone and thought it would be interesting to combine some of the documentary footage and some of the storytelling they had with real world scientists with a fictional game that was inspired by the science and the storytelling in their series. And so they called us up and invited us to do some creative ideation around a new game inspired by Blue Planet 2. And as soon as we formed that partnership, we found we had co-funders and scientists who were really excited to build upon the audience that BBC had reached with the documentary, and hopefully to bring that science and bring that inspiring real world to a demographic that doesn't typically watch, a BBC nature documentary. So that was the origin story of this particular project.
That's pretty cool. I'm ashamed to say that I played only like an hour of Never Alone. I downloaded it. I think I got it for free on PS Plus, probably on PlayStation. And I played a bit, and I think I got distracted by other new releases and never got to it. And then I regret that choice. I need to go back and play it too.
Yeah, if you do have a chance to play it, I would say play it with a friend. It's it was a tough difficulty curve. When you play it single player, you have to character switch, and it's a better game if you play it as couch co-op. I think you can play it online co-op now using Steam's little online co-op feature. But it's a fun game if you play with a friend. So we would invite you to play it that way.
Okay, we'll try couch co-op. I didn't know there was couch co-op actually. I didn't remember. I think couch co-op is like one of those things. It's such a rare gem to get a game that's couch co-op these days, especially good ones. And I don't know why, because I'm sure like a lot of developers would have, started off their gaming career, playing with their friends, like playing GoldenEye and stuff like that. And so I wonder why it's dying out. I'm hoping you guys make more good stuff.
Yeah, we like the intimacy of small party co-op. All the games that we're making now will either have 2-person cooperative missions or 3 or 4-person cooperative missions. Never Alone in particular, the theme was about interdependence and understanding how we as people are, interdependent with the natural world and with, in the case of the Alaska Native culture, the spiritual world. And so it was a premise from the beginning that they wanted people to play it with each other. And we actually debated doing online co-op versus couch co-op. And, they really liked the idea of people being in a setting together, being face to face and experiencing the game with each other. I think, going forward for business reasons, we'll probably do both couch and online co-op. But we love the idea of that intimacy of small party co-op.
How did your team end up formulating the idea of what a marine biologist would look like? Like, did you guys deliberate with scientists or people in the field? How much of that? How much did you want to do, but maybe wasn't that realistic? What was that like?
Yeah, so our process is very inclusive and participatory. So whatever the real world topic is, what we try to do is find scientists who have the time to go through the entire production process with us. And so they're on board and they're part of the creative ideation from the beginning. And that allows us to go back and forth with ideas that we think will make good gameplay and get them to help us map that to things that would feel inspired by the real world, but also to be inspired by the kind of work they're doing or the work they think will be done in the next 10 or 15 years, in this case around ocean research. And so we had 2 lead scientists who we would talk to, maybe once or twice a month. And then we had a postdoc oceanographer and marine biologist who was resident in the team in the studio for the entire duration of the project. I think in terms of finding that balance between having a compelling gameplay and a great story and making it about real world science, I'll be honest, we were more constrained by our own development expertise and budget than we were by the amazing, inspiring ideas that our scientists, guided us to, because it's a fascinating world that's so little explored, and it has just, with millions and millions of years of adaptation, there are just amazing secrets and mysteries still to be unlocked in the ocean. So we were certainly not short on material or ideas for gameplay.
How did you get the game funded? Did you do it all by yourselves as a studio? Did you manage to get any funding from like research organizations, anything like that?
We typically do a co-funding model. So our company, typically does at least half of the funding. And then we try to partner with folks who have an interest in the impact theme that is underneath the game. So in this particular case, we partnered with a few organizations that are impact investors focused on ocean conservation and science communication. And so they're organizations like one called Ocean X, which is a leading research organization that brings they bring vessels. They have cutting edge research vessels, and they also have cutting edge media recording capabilities. And the idea is to essentially bring the real life science to consumers as a global audience. And so they were a great and very mission aligned organization. And then we partnered with a few other foundations or impact investors who just felt like the theme of the game was really aligned. One in particular likes to do media that inspires young women to pursue careers like science, technology, engineering, and math. And that we had a protagonist and all of our lead scientists were female was aligned with them in terms of having media that has very strong female protagonists that are in heroic roles in the material.
For sure. Speaking about funding, if you guys had even more funding than maybe you got from, other institutions, what would you have liked to add to the game to make it better?
I think probably the number one thing we would have done was allow you to play it with others. I mean, we really benefited from that cooperative experience with Never Alone. And when we looked at this particular game, we were going 3D, we were going, a much richer visual environment. And we didn't quite have the budget to pull off online co-op, because we would have had to do AI for the character switching in addition to, allowing you to play with others so that we could, have both a single player and multiplayer mode. I think that was probably the biggest place that we would love to come back to, and we actually are strongly considering a sequel, and our hope is to be able to bake that into the game design from the beginning. I would also say that when we look at the feedback we get from our players, we have a pretty passionate player community, but I would say we get consistent feedback. They want to go deeper. They literally want to go deeper. They want to go to deeper parts of the ocean. They want to explore bigger worlds. I think diversity of gameplay. We have pretty limited set of mechanics in the game, and we try to keep it very accessible to players who don't have, deep gamer skills or have a lot of gaming literacy. But I think we have sophisticated gamers who love the ocean and love playing things about the ocean. So if we could get some more diverse mechanics and a little less of a linear progression, I think being a little more open world, a little more exploratory and rewarding, looking around and finding clues to discover the next mission or the main gameplay, that would probably be the second thing we would do.
I suppose the only real shortcoming that I've seen online and other people that I know that have played is that the narrative was probably too short and not as in-depth as we would have liked it. So I think, maybe a bit of a longer story mode would be nice. And I think some things that are more, I suppose, in terms of gameplay loop, a bit more, I suppose, intense, or maybe something for the hardcore gamers.
Yeah, and we agree. I think when we look at the potential for a sequel, I think we're looking at generating the missions and the gaming events a little more programmatically, so that our production costs aren't quite so linear. And I think that would both lead to more emergent experiences. I think it would also allow us to create much more depth of gameplay, and with more gameplay, richer opportunities for narrative. And I also think we learned quite a bit about how to raise stakes and create that intensity or that sense that I have agency, and it matters if I fail. And so we're actually working on some DLC, some updates for the game that are going to try to explore things a little more dramatically. And certainly in our plans for a potential sequel, we'll try to bring that intensity that those gamers like. And we completely agree with that feedback.
Was there anything thrown around about having some research involvement, like citizen science, like getting the players involved in some kind of research aspect, or trying to use data in some way that other scientists could publish?
Yeah, we actually started development on a couple of citizen science projects to try to take the actions that they have available and integrate them into the game. And again, that was something we ended up starting, but having to leave for a sequel. In particular, there are projects that look at both the identification of species, mapping species. There are citizen science projects that look at pattern recognition. So they present data, whether it's imaging of the ocean or video streams, and they look for folks to help them make sense of it, in a way that machine learning can't. And we would be super excited to do that. We actually worked with a group who had done some fascinating embedded citizen science with EVE Online. It's a European group. And, we really learned a lot from how they were able to make that part of the core gameplay. And so, you broke the wall and you knew that you were accomplishing something in the real world from a citizen science perspective, but they were able within EVE to actually make it feel like progress in the game itself. And, for us, that would be important. We want to hold our standards high in terms of giving you activities that feel like they're well integrated with the game. So we think it's a great idea. We would love to do it. And hopefully we'll get to revisit those partnership opportunities in a sequel.
For sure. I think citizen science in video games is one of those things that just makes a lot of sense, but not a lot of people are doing it. Hopefully, going forward, you have games like Borderlands 3, Folded, and like you said, EVE Online. I think I'm currently together with a friend collaborating on writing about some citizen science games and what they do. So I think there's an article in EVE Online that's going to come out. I forget what the other one is, but shameless plug. So
I look forward to it.
So recently, just like last week, Zach Hartzman, who is the creator of Hey Listen Games, which writes and prepares material to be taught in class about video games, wrote a story about you guys and Beyond Blue, trying to promote it as a way to, discuss marine science. Was that something that you guys were intending at the start? Was there anything you did in the game to try and push that as a teaching tool?
Yeah, so as a company, we do both games that are monetized primarily as consumer entertainment. So Beyond Blue, is essentially positioned as a AAA budget indie game, and we have to survive from a revenue perspective on its competitiveness as meaningful entertainment. We also make games for learning, and we make games specifically for learning environments where the goal is purposeful learning. In the case of Beyond Blue and with Never Alone, we wanted to make sure we didn't compromise the competitiveness of the game from a gameplay perspective. But what we do is we try to make the gameplay itself accessible to folks who have varying degrees of gamer skills or gamer literacy. So, our hope is that both of those games are ones that even folks who don't play a lot of games can pick up and get into. We also try to avoid progress blockers in the game so that you can experience the story, you can experience it without really, really strict challenge curves. And so some folks think that made Beyond Blue feel super easy. But our feeling is we want people who want to put the time in to get the whole experience and learn everything. We try to look when we chose the content for the Ocean Insights. For those of you who are listening who don't know, part of the structure of these games we do is you are rewarded as you make progress in the game by unlocking these short 2-minute mini documentaries. And those mini documentaries, in this case, were never seen before or just amazing footage from the Blue Planet 2 production, along with original interviews with scientists who talk about the real world science and the real world mysteries that inspired the mission in the game that unlocked that video. And our hope is that real hard science and that ability for a teacher to have the kids experience some gameplay and then come back and review the videos would create an engaging experience. And we try to make those relatively diverse in topic so that there's lots of choice for science teachers to choose if they want to highlight one or two areas of scientific discovery.
It's quite interesting where you I suppose one of the rewards that you get to learn stuff. I kind of like I like better the idea of having a side effect be learning. I think that's much cooler. But I think, there's always a place for both. People have different preferences. And like you said, like the format that you use would, I think, be better in the classroom than just a straight narrative that I think might be difficult to do in a classroom setting where you just have like maybe an hour to tackle something. So there's places for both, but I definitely like things that are just like, okay, you're playing, you're having fun, you're being entertained, and the side effect is that you're learning. I think those things are really effective and fun for me.
And that is certainly a design pillar that we share when we make our consumer facing games. And, for us, if we feel like we're ever asking you to overcome a game challenge or spend time in a game that would not be natural to your enjoyment of the game, then we're undermining its success as a consumer product. And, we look historically at games like Civilization and even going back to my childhood Oregon Trail, and we think there's some great examples of folks who just make the challenge aligned with actually learning something about the real world and being engaged with it. And so we don't think you have to sacrifice gameplay as long as you're taking inspiration from this awesome world we live in.
Now that you have extensive experience working with scientists and the community in creating your games, what kind of tips would you have for other people or other game studios trying to do similar things?
Yeah, I guess our first one would be to engage with the experts early, and to teach them about game making. I mean, one of the things that I think our game benefited from, as did our game with Never Alone, is that instead of just asking them for scientific references or for science, we brought them in to be creative collaborators on the actual gameplay. So we got them familiar. We had them play other games like the games that we did. And that gave them a context where they were thinking about it really from a gameplay perspective as opposed to a pure science perspective. And it helped us when we tried to mine their ideas for actions, for the verbs, right? And for the kind of technology that you might want to have that allow you to accomplish mechanics. And like I said, if only we had, twice the budget, because, as they became familiar with what it means to play a single player narrative adventure, as they became familiar with what it means to do discovery and exploration in games or collection in games as a mechanic, they just had incredible ideas on how to map, high stakes missions to the gameplay. And so, we saved all that, and we're hoping to come back to that from a content perspective. But I would say treat your experts as game designers, and that's not to say that they will start that way. But if you make the investment, I think it's a lot of fun for them, and I think you end up problem solving together creatively much better than if you just asked for the scientific reference.
I think that's a really important point. Also, I think when you get involved in a creative endeavor, you start becoming somebody who wants to be more involved, or you want to kind of work in the system and add your thing. It's something it's a phenomenon, I think, that most Dungeons and Dragons players who become dungeon masters take on. They want to just break the game and make it themselves or improve it how the players want to play. And I think that's one of the things that you guys as game developers probably start off with, and then you want to do more and more different things and just build on it. So going back to the Ocean Insights videos, your team posted recently on your YouTube channel some of them, and whoever's missing out, I haven't seen Beyond Blue, maybe go see some of those to see what rewards you can get in the game. But it also brought to me the mind that there's a lot of theme or undertone about content creation by, a scientist or just anybody really. That's one of the main characters' things. Mirai's things, but also the actress that plays Mirai, Anna Kana, is also a content creator. She posts videos on YouTube. I actually know about her long before I played the game. I was a big fan. But there's also you guys now still supporting the game in that way of releasing content. So how important was that to the team? At what point did you decide, okay, we need to include this in the game and then continue to support the game in that way? What was the thinking around that?
Yeah, I guess for us, it's an intrinsic part of any game that we make for the consumer market. The idea of creating an intimate relationship between the player and the experts that help us mine the real world, we feel is an opportunity that as game makers, we go through that journey. And so, when we made the game about Alaska Native culture, we spent weeks, in Alaska, within the community, participating in the festivals, listening to the oral storytelling. And our feeling is that by allowing the people who are the real world experts to speak directly to the audience, directly to the player, unfiltered, that there's just something magical about that. And it also, I think the videos create an opportunity for us to break the wall and say, well, this is really what the science is, or this is really why this is exciting for our planet if we could solve this particular mystery. And I think that being able to do that within the video allows us to be a little more free in the gameplay itself. And so, we don't have to dot every I, we don't have to cross every T. We can take a little bit of liberty, with the science or the technology, and then use the video to contextualize, well, this is why we took this leap. You can't really do this right now. You can't really swim this deep as Mirai with this suit. But when we, so why is Mirai swimming so deep in a suit instead of using a drone? And then the scientists can talk about how important they think it is for humans to witness something live, for them to be present live in a biome, and for players to see the human in the context of nature, to see just how differently adapted the creatures are relative to the human. So their recommendation was, stretch it a little bit. Let's have a magical suit that allows Mirai to go that deep. And that way the player will feel a more intimate connection to the environment that's down there.
And for those who like Japanese culture and anime and whatnot, the word Mirai actually means future, which I thought was a nice attention to detail in the video game.
Yeah, the working title for the game, was Future of the Ocean, and which was how Mirai got her name. So I appreciate your acknowledging that.
Do you, Michael, get time to play any games anymore? What have you played recently or last?
Most of the games I play for work to understand where people are doing similar things. For this game, for instance, I played countless hours of Subnautica, which is, from our perspective, just a wonderfully deep game, and obviously deeper and longer and more developed than our game. But, it was really fun to just see when, with someone who took the time to build that much game, what you could do in the ocean. So that we found that inspiring. I play a lot of games that are looking at narrative and how games with emergent narratives speak to the human condition. So Spiritfarer, as an example, is a recent game where, the storytelling that takes place, as you do your Spiritfaring, it just feels deep and rich and complex. And, we take inspiration for folks who are taking risks with theme, who are taking risks with narrative storytelling, or who are just trying to make games that are moving and meaningful in general.
Sure. I tried to play a bit of Subnautica, but it gave me too much anxiety. Stop playing it. I need to get the Spiritfarer. There was another one that was also, I think it was done, Abzu. That was also a cool one.
Abzu was a reference as well. And a game that is related, at least in terms of lineage. Genova Chen has the new Sky game that I think is on mobile, which I think is pushing the envelope in terms of approach to mobile and in-app purchases, and doing something that is super meaningful, inviting different forms of collaboration in the game. And so we're intrigued with where that project has gone and watching it and cheering for its success.
Okay, yeah, I'm not aware of that. I need to check it out. So thanks for signal boosting. But I mean, it's been a fun chat, Michael. It's really interesting talking to you. Hope we get to talk in the future more about whatever games your studio releases. So why don't you let us know where people can find your work in the various ways that you guys are developing?
So you can find us at elinemedia.com. You'll find our developer webpage. And if you're interested in Beyond Blue itself, it's beyondbluegame.com. And you'll find our projects there. And thanks for the invitation. It was a fun chat, and I look forward to future podcasts from you. I love your theme.
For sure. Thanks a lot. Cheers.
Cheers. Have a good day.